Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another itty bitty knit kit that I got from Five Below. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in. And for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today, you guys, we are doing a viewer request. If you have a request, leave a comment below. If you don't want to wait for me to find the kit, you can always email me the instructions. Also, if you want priority over your requests, you can check out the membership perks. I have 2 levels. There might be something in there that could help you out. So anyway, today we're going to do Lolli Pop. Let's get straight into this. We have our packet, instructional booklet, and then we have our spools of yarn. Okay. So let's set this aside for now. Let's look into this packet here. We have our knitting needles, our Lolli Pop stick, stuffing, felt stickers, and a sewing needle. So just so we don't get this dirty, I'm going to put this back into the packet along with the felt stickers. And then just so that I don't lose these parts, I'm going to put the sewing needle and the Lolli Pop stick back and set that aside for now. In the instructional booklet, they do have a link for other videos in case my video doesn't help. My video is just my way of how I break it down and make it easier for myself. My way might not be helpful for you. But in the instructional booklet, there are some clear illustrations and text that you can also use, again, alongside with their videos in case this one doesn't help. Due to copyright reasons, I cannot share any of the information in these instructional booklets. And I also suggest to protect yourself, to not share any information with anyone in the chat as well. What I do like about this is that they include a ruler, so you don't have to go and get one yourself. But we're going to go ahead and go straight into this. So my video pretty much just teaches you how to do the steps, not necessarily how to do the pattern. But we do go in afterwards and we put all the pieces together. So this one's going to be fairly interesting, very colorful. So we're going to start with the pink yarn, and then we're going to do the yellow and then the blue. So we are going to be transitioning in and out of colors. I think looking ahead at this, I'm going to cut each time I change color, just so that I'm not dragging, you know, the yarn all the way up. This is going to be about a foot long, so here we go. So we're going to unravel this up here. Now, they do have a little illustration there. We're going to have to divide up the colors so that we kind of end up proportionally to how the instructional booklet has it. I hate when they do this, like, it's just a mess. Okay. So what we're going to do is first measure out the tail. The tail is what we're going to use to sew on. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out the tail. Okay. So right here is where the tail ends. This is the amount of tail that I measured out. this is what we're going to use to sew the pieces together. I have a feeling we're going to need a lot more, but I'm going to go and use the colors and I'll explain later. But yeah, this is how much we need to sew the pieces together. So I'm going to keep this marker that I'm holding here very tightly, and then I'm going to take my middle and ring finger and hold the yarn apart. This can be loose. Then I'm going to take 2 fingers and I'm going to push up on the yarn. We're going to twist it down, and then I'm going to take my middle and index finger. We're going to grab onto the feeder yarn and pull it through the loop to create a huge knot. So we have this huge knot here. We just have to tighten it up. So go tighten up your yarn and try to tighten it up close to your thumb as much as possible. So just pull on the yarn to tighten it up. Again, you want to pull it close to your left thumb so that we have minimal waste, because you never know if they give you enough yarn to complete the project. But once we get it to a knot, then you can take your tail and pull it just a little bit more to get that knot nice and snug. You don't have to pull it too hard, but then you just grasp your knot. Now we have to make this loop small enough to fit 2 knitting needles. So take your feeder yarn, that's the one that's attached to the spool of yarn. We're going to pull that until our loop is small enough to fit 2 knitting needles. All right, then you can go in and put in your needles. Oops. So you can loosen it or tighten it as much as you need. But now I'm going to show you what to do next. So let's cast on some stitches. What you're going to do is we're going to get into a knit stitch position. So this project mainly uses knit stitches, just 1 stitch and you're good. There's just 2 different variations of it. When you cast on with the slip knot, the ending is slightly different from making a regular knit stitch, but they're both going to start the same. So what you're going to want to do is take your knitting needles and we're going to move it to knit stitch position, which is an X. You have your right needle on the bottom, left needle on top. We have our tail down and out of the way. We're not going to need anything with this until the very end. And then of course the feeder yarn is wrapped around your finger, or however you hold it. I mean, the booklet shows you how to hold it, I think, and you may have your own way of holding it. This is just my way of holding it, and that's attached to the feeder yarn, and that's up and out of the way. So you're always going to want to maintain contact with your 2 needles. If you look very closely, there's a small piece of surface right in there that is touching. This is going to prevent any stitches from slipping through. So you always want to maintain contact with your needles. Even when you set it down, sometimes you'll put it together and wrap the yarn around it to make sure that it's together. Okay, so knit stitch position. Right needle at the bottom, left needle on top. We're going to take our feeder yarn that's in the back here. We're going to wrap it around our right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap because we're maintaining contact with our needle. Okay, and we want to get it into this little crevice right there. Once you're here, we're going to slide our left needle down the right needle, over the tip and down the back. That's going to force the feeder yarn through this loop, creating a new stitch. So let's do that now. Slide your left needle over the right needle, over the point, down the back. See, it's forcing that feeder yarn through the loop to create a new stitch. So now we have 1 on each side. What we have to do is transfer the new stitch over to the left side. So take your left needle, go through that new stitch and lift it off the right needle. So now you have 2 stitches on your left. Alright, so let's do this again. Stick your right needle into the new stitch, get into your knit stitch position, that's an X. You want your right needle at the bottom, left needle on top, feeder yarn in the back, always maintaining contact with your needles. We're going to wrap around the right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Get it into that crevice. We're going to slide the left needle down the right needle, over the tip, down the back, and that's going to force the feeder yarn through this loop, creating a new stitch. So let's do that now. Slide the left needle over the right, over the point, and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. So now we just have to transfer over the new stitch to the left needle. So take your left needle, go through that new stitch, lift it up, off the right needle, and onto the left, and now we have 3 stitches. Alright, so let's do this one more time. Stick your right needle into the new stitch, get into your knit stitch position, that's an X. You want your right needle on the bottom, left needle on top, maintaining contact. You want your feeder yarn in the back. We're going to wrap around the right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Get it into that crevice right there. We're going to slide our left needle down the right needle, over the tip, and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through the loop. So let's do that now. Slide down the left needle over the point, down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through that loop, creating a new stitch. Then we're going to transfer the new stitch over to the left. So take your left needle, put it through the new stitch, lift it off the right, and onto the left needle. So now you have 4 stitches. So now that I've shown you how to do this at least 3 times step by step, you can go and rewind this video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing casting on stitches by yourself. I've now divided my videos into chapters, so you can go into the description box below and click on the section that you need to do fast navigation. But for now, I'm going to just finish the rest of the stitches required for this rectangle. Okay, I highly recommend that after you do your stitches that you count to make sure that you have the right amount for each row. Alright, so as we're doing this, this first round is going to be easy because everything seems to be uniform. Once we get into more rows, the yarn loosens up and it doesn't look nice and straight. But here you want to make sure that your stitches that you made are in a straight line. You don't want something looking like this, twisting, turning, because then it's not going to look right when you knit it. Okay, so you always want to make sure after every row you not only count your stitches, but you make sure that your project is straight and growing downward. And I'll explain why after the next row. So what we're going to do now, we cast it on stitches. We're now going to do the knit stitch. So like I said, it's basically the same steps except the ending is going to be different. So in saying that, the number of stitches that you start with your left needle, you're going to end up with the same amount of stitches on your right needle. So when we create a stitch that, like you saw, we're going to leave it on the right needle, but we're going to lose a stitch on the left needle. By the end of the row, your left needle will have no more stitches. Okay, so let's go through that right now. Put your needle into the top stitch here and get into your knit stitch position. We're going to do a knit stitch. So take your feeder yarn and wrap around your right needle, always maintaining contact from back to front and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Get it into that crevice. Then we're going to slide the left needle down the right needle, over the point and down the back, forcing the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. So like I said, for our knit stitch, we're going to leave the stitch on the right needle. We have to then lose a stitch on the left needle. So carefully push up your stitches on the left needle. You only want to get rid of one stitch, like that. So when we gain one stitch on the right needle, we're going to lose a stitch on the left needle. So let's do another one. Stick your right needle into the next top stitch on the left needle. Get into your knit stitch position, maintaining contact with your needles. Take your feeder yarn and we're going to wrap it around our right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Into that crevice, we're going to slide the left needle down the right needle, over the point, down the back, creating a new stitch on the right needle. We just have to get rid of this stitch on the left needle. So carefully push up your stitches enough to flick off the stitch on the left needle. So now we have 2 stitches on the right minus 2 stitches on the left. So let's do this one more time, you guys. Stick your right needle into the next top stitch here. Get into your knit stitch position. Always maintaining contact with your needles. We're going to wrap around the right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Into that crevice. We're going to slide the left needle down the right needle, over the tip, down the back, creating a new stitch. And then we're going to lose a stitch on the left, so carefully push up your stitches on the left needle and flick off that one stitch. So now we have 3 stitches on the right minus 3 stitches on the left. So now that I've done some knit stitches for you at least 3 times step by step, you can rewind this video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing knit stitches on your own. I've divided this video into chapters, so you can go into the description box and click on the section that you need. But I'm going to move on to the rest of this row, and then I'm going to come back in and show you what you have to do next. Alright, so we're here now. No more stitches on the left, all the stitches on the right. There should be the same number of stitches on the right that we started with on the left. So now we have to do a new row. What do we do? So what we're going to do is just swap needles. So take your left needle, move it over to the right, and take your right needle and flip it over to the left. And I suggest doing it this way, just taking the point and flipping it over, because it's automatically making your feeder yarn kind of stay down and back. And I'm going to explain why that's important. So I flipped it over and then I readjusted my hand on here. The reason why you need your feeder yarn down and back is because, again, after every row, you want to make sure your stitches are straight. So I told you the first row is going to be nice and neat, but for some reason thereafter, all the rows get a little bunchy, so it's not going to look all nice and neat. But you definitely want to make sure that all your stitches are in a straight row. You don't want any spiraling like that. And so I've created a short on actually why this happens. But I've had some comments of people asking where they are ending up with extra stitches. They have no idea why it's happening. And I'm going to show you why right now. So we have our row of stitches here. Let's say we weren't paying attention to the stitches being straight. Let's say we accidentally had our feeder yarn not down and back, but up and back. Look how this ends up turning into 2 stitches. You have one right here with down and back. If we lift this up and back, look how it just now looks like it's 2 stitches. So, if you kind of confuse yourself to thinking that it's down and back, another way to make sure that this is going in the right direction, if you flip it upside down, you're gonna see that you have this row of stitches, but it's creeping up this way. And I'm pulling on the feeder yarn up and back. You can also see that the tail wants to follow it. The tail should be down. So if I pull this down, you can kind of see it's still looking like 2 stitches, but things are being stretched here. So what you want to do, if you don't know, let go of your feeder yarn. Let's readjust this. It's going to naturally pull back straight. So here I'm straightening this out, and you can see that the feeder yarn is wanting to go forward. So that's how you kind of know if everything is looking right. Just keep tugging at your stitches to make sure they're at a straight line. So now I'm going to do the next row. And this one I'm going to do at a moderate pace just because now I've pretty much shown you everything you need to know. That's pretty much it. Well, not everything yet. There is the end and the transitioning of colors. Okay, take it back. But I'm just going to do this row. So we have our stitches on our left. We're just going to do the same knit stitches that we've been doing. This is so you can see what it's going to look like when you start getting the hang of creating these stitches. All right. So that's that, and I accidentally pulled that. Look how crazy it is, but it'll all even out in the end, so don't worry about that. So swap your needles, make sure it's nice and straight. You can always count your stitches to make sure you're on track. But so this is what you have to do now. I'm going to continue doing the pink. You can see the colors in the instructional booklet. Divide those blocks up by the number of inches the rectangle is supposed to be. So that would be my best bet to make the colors nice and even. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the rest in silence. I'm going to do pink. And then when I get it to the size that I want it to be, I'll hop back in and I'll show you how to transition colors. Just note for now, because I'll bring it up when I come back, that our tail had always started on our left side. Okay, so when we transition colors, your tail should always be on your left side. but again, when we get there. So let me just do this pink stuff here, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I made it the size that it needs to start off with, and we're going to be transitioning into the yellow. So set this aside for now. Let's unravel this yellow. It's going to get very tangly up in here. You can always, you know, re-roll it into a ball, but I don't do that. Okay, so this time I want to have, I want to make sure that I have enough yarn to sew these rectangular color sections together so it all matches. If you were to sew with this on, then you can see it through the pink, right? So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to waste too much yarn, again, you never know if they give you enough, I'm going to go back and forth about 3 times. 3 times. Let's do 4 just to make sure. Okay, 4 times for a tail length. Okay. And that's for all the colors in between. The colors on the end, I guess, have the amount that the booklet says. Okay, so this is what I do. You can just tie it onto this. I don't like to do that. I like to make kind of like a cleaner look. I mean, it's not really, but you decide. So, pinching here, we're gonna cast on with the slip knot like we did earlier. So hold this pinched, ring and finger, a ring and middle, hold it apart, take 2 fingers, push up and turn down, then take your middle and index and pull the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a huge knot. Then we're going to tighten this up, and again, tighten it up close to your thumb. So just pull on this string until the knot gets tighter. Okay, then once you get it to where it is a knot, you can pull on the tail just to make sure that knot is nice and snug. Then you can hold on to the knot and then pull on the feeder yarn to make this loop small enough to fit your knitting needles. Alright. So like I said, I'm just going to cut this off because I don't want to trail it up with all these. Normally I would trail it up like I've done in the past, but this one is a little different because it's changing multiple colors. So I'm going to take my scissor and I'm going to cut about 1 inch or so on here. Alright. So now what we're going to do, you're going to stick your right needle into this first stitch like we're going to do a knit stitch, but instead of using the pink, we're going to use the yellow. So slip that on there. Okay. While we're here, we're going to loosely tie up the pink to the yellow. Don't tie it too tight because it's gonna you're gonna make it too tight around the needle and it's gonna be hard to fit 2 needles in there. So I'm just gonna double, maybe triple. I just want to secure a knot, and we'll be hiding this stuff when we sew it all together, so it's not that big of a deal if your knot is not looking that great. But we're gonna leave this tail behind here. Okay, so we're gonna act like we just did a yarn wrap around on the right by slipping that one on there. So from here you're gonna continue your left needle sliding down the right needle over the tip down the back, creating this new stitch that we kind of already created on our own. And then you just flick off this top stitch here on the left, and now we're just automatically doing yellow. So again, every time you change colors, you want your tail, the pink one, to be on this side. Okay, and you know, pay this no mind. This is here for later when we sew everything together. All right, so from here on, I'm just gonna go and continue down the row with the yellow. And I want to do a couple of rows with you because I want to show you what happens and why the tail, the pink tail, has to be on the left side every time you change colors. Because right now, the way that we're looking at this at the front, it looks like a nice transition to yellow. The back, not so much. It's going to look different. Okay, so we have that row done. Let's flip this over and do another row. Okay, you can kind of see it now, but I'm going to do another row so you can really see what I want to show you here. So let's just do knit stitches down this row. All right, so if you can see the wrong side, you can automatically tell which side it is because when we transition, there's going to be a little striping. There's going to be a little stripe of yellow, a little stripe of pink, and then it's going to be yellow thereafter. So that's not a nice transition. That is some sort of color striping. But on this side, you can see that we just went from pink, yellow. So this is how you know this is the right side. So when you change colors in your tail, your pink tail is on the left side, you're going to get this same result every single time. If you accidentally change colors on the wrong side with the tail, the pink tail on the right, you're going to have a clean transition this way, but when you turn it, you're going to see that same striping on this side, which you don't want. So always make sure your pink tail is on the left when you change colors. So from here, I evenly divide the colors, so I'm going to do the rest of the yellow to the size that I need, and then I'll pop back in to show you how to transition to blue. And then the rest I'm going to do on my own and come back in for the very end. Okay, so in silence. Alright, so we have our second color down. We have to add one more for now. So unravel the blue. Okay. So we're gonna do our little thing again. I'm gonna make 4 passes on the side here. Hopefully I'll have enough in the end. Okay, pinch it there. Alright, so I'm gonna hold this down tight. Take your middle and ring and hold the yarn apart. Take 2 fingers here and lift up, turn down, then take your middle and index and pull on the feeder yarn through that large loop, creating a knot. Okay, then we're going to tighten up the knot close to the thumb. As close as possible so that we don't waste the yarn. Okay, once you have your knot, you can pull on this tail to tighten it up, not too much, then grab the knot and pull on the feeder yarn to make the loop small enough to fit a knitting needle. Okay, so we're going to set this aside for now. I'm going to take my scissors and we're going to cut about 1 inch or so of this yellow. And we're going to grab our needle here. We're going to put our right needle into that first stitch as if we were to start our knit stitch. Rather than use the yellow here, I'm going to slip on the blue. Okay. And while this is on here, I'm just going to go ahead and tie the yellow to the blue. To secure it, don't tie it too tight because then you won't be able to fit your needle in there. Double knot this or triple, depending on how you feel. Okay, then we can go about creating our knit stitches like we normally would, except now we're just using the blue. Okay. And then don't worry about the knots because we'll be hiding them when we sew everything together. But I'm just going to do a couple of rows for you again so you can see the color transition. And again, you want to make sure that that pink tail is on the left side. Okay, so now that I've done a couple of rows, let's just look at this wrong side first. You can see again we have the yellow, a stripe of blue, and a stripe of yellow, and then further down here when we transition to the yellow we have our pink, yellow, pink. So unless you like that sort of thing, you know, this wouldn't be the ideal side. And then when we turn this over, you can see that we have clear transitions between our colors. So now that I've shown you how to transition to both colors, I'm gonna repeat the pattern until I make the length of the rectangle, and we'll come back in and I'll show you how to cast off. And remember, so that we can use this to sew the edges together, to leave yourself some tail at each color block. Hopefully we'll have enough yarn for that. But yeah, so I'm gonna do the rest in silence. All right, so I finished doing the patches of color. I'm going to show you how to fasten off. So we are on the wrong side right now. Okay, so let me show you how to fasten off. Every time we fasten off, we have to have 2 stitches on our right needle. So let's knit 2 stitches. Okay. Once we've knit 2 stitches, we get to leapfrog this stitch over the next stitch, and then we're going to remove it completely off the right needle and then off the left needle, leaving this stitch by itself. Okay. So pick up this stitch, we're going to leapfrog it over the next. You can use your thumb to hold that stitch back, but we're going to remove this stitch off the right needle and off the left needle, leaving you with that 1 stitch. So again, you always have to have 2 stitches on your right needle to cast off. So let's knit another stitch. From here, again, we're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next, off the right needle, and then off the left needle. So take your left needle, stick that through this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over the next. You can use your thumb to hold it back, but I'm going to move this stitch off the right needle and then off the left needle, leaving the stitch by itself again. Let's do this one more time. Knit another stitch. Stick your left needle into this stitch here. We're going to leapfrog it over the next, then remove it off the right needle and off the left needle. So leapfrog it. You can hold this stitch back with your thumb, pull this stitch off the right needle and then off the left needle, leaving this behind. Alright, so now that I've shown you how to cast off at least 3 times step by step, you can rewind this part of the video as many times as you need until you're comfortable doing the cast off on your own. I've divided my videos into chapters, so you can go into the description box and click on the section that you need. But I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the stitches on the left needle. When we're left with 1 stitch, I'm going to show you what to do with that. Alright, now that we have 1 stitch left, what do? So what we're going to do is take your remaining feeder yarn, we're going to wrap it around your right needle like that. You can hold it back with your index and middle finger, but now we can make pretend that these are 2 stitches again. So lift up this stitch, we're going to leapfrog it over the yarn over. You can hold it back so you don't lose it, but we're going to remove this off the right needle and then off the left needle. And so now what we're going to do is I'm going to pull this needle out so that we can get all of this remaining yarn out. If you have a decent amount of blue left, congratulations, but you can cut about 1 inch or so. I'm going to cut it afterwards. But you can cut about 1 inch or so because we're not going to need a tail for this. We already got one from transitioning to the blue already. But once you pull all of that out, this loop here you can turn into a knot. Just hold it at the base right here and we're going to pull on it until that loop turns into a knot. And then again, I'm just going to cut this off about 1 inch or so. And that is that. So here is our long rectangle. So from here I'm going to go grab the sewing needle. And what we have to do is fold this, and they want the prettier side on the outside already, so fold this here. It looks like they're starting to sew the blue side, so take your blue thread, thread up your needle, I mean, actually, it doesn't really matter what side, but it looks like they left the blue side open, so that's what I'm going to do. But again, prettier side on the outside, and then now it's just a matter of lining up these rows. As long as you line up your rows, your stitches, and everything is going to look nice and even. And I'm just going to do this straight stitching, I think it's called. I'm not a sewer, so don't quote me. And then here's where you you can tuck away the excess pieces that you don't need, and that you don't even want to show. So like I said, we're going to tuck them all away when we sew the pieces together, and that's exactly what I'm doing now. Alright, so I'm guessing we're going to do a gather stitch later, so I'm just going to make a knot right here so that when we pull the gather stitch, it's not going to pull the sides. So I'm going to make my knot right there, and then I'm going to let this go for now. This is left open. Let's go for the yellow. I'm just going to go down the line here. And it was a good thing that they said we can do this, because I've learned from other kits to do this, because I've just used the same yarn that I ended up with, so you'll see in those videos the colors of yarn are poking through the blocking, which isn't, you know, it's not ideal. So it's all lessons learned from previous kits. I hope you guys continue learning how to knit, because over time you'll develop your own style of knitting, and you'll find your own tips and tricks that if we are still in this community together, you can always drop your tips in my community tab and share with everyone things that you've learned. Okay. So here I'm going to tie a knot, and then to hide this, I'm going to go in one spot right next to where that piece is coming out, and I'm going to tuck this in here, pull it all the way out so it's inside, and then we're just going to move down the colors. So now that I've shown you how to do that, I'm gonna mute myself because the allergies are kicking in, and I'll come back when we get to the other side. Alright, so I finished sewing down the sides. I tied a knot at the end because now we're going to do a gather stitch on this side. And to do that, we're pretty much just going to weave in and out our needle, in and out of these stitches. Okay, and then once you're on the other side, we're going to pull this closed, and then they tell you to just tie a knot. I don't like to just do that because there's still a hole in the middle and you want to make sure that this is very secure. So I'm going to do like a little crisscross across this hole, and then I'm going to tie my knot. Okay. I'm going to leave this out for now because now we have to fill the cavity with stuffing. So we just have to kind of fish this in. I would have probably had in the instructions to fill this as we were tying it up. I did think about that, but I didn't, if that makes any sense. So now I'm kind of like kicking myself thinking, oh, maybe we should have filled this in as we were sewing it together. But at the same time, you never know if you'll have enough stuffing. So I do recommend buying some extra stuffing. I bought, I think, like a 32-ounce bag, so I've got stuffing and I've been using it for quite some time. And I'm breaking this up in pieces so that it's easier to manage. You want to make sure that this tube is going to be as even as possible. Okay, and then you can always just scrunch up. Alright, so I'm going to thread this up here, and we're going to do the gather stitch on this end. So again, go in and out of the stitching. And then we're going to pull on it like we did on the other side, and just to secure the hole, I'm going to sew across it on one side and then another, like a crisscross, and then I'm going to tie my knot. All right. Oh my gosh, seriously, that's crazy. All right. So let's, it looks like it wants us to use the pink. We're going to start doing the swirl. Okay, so we're just going to make stitches to sew this in. It'd be great if you see the seam that we have from sewing it together. If you can turn it in from the seam, that would be great, because then we can hide that seam in the swirl, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to start spinning this and sewing along the way. Again, using the seam line from where we sewed everything. Okay, once I've reached the end, I'm going to tie my knot. And then I'm going to stick my needle in one end, randomly out the other. And you can trim this down, flush to the surface, and then squeeze it. Alright, well, that's not much of a color spiral, but it's a spiral. So now we're going to work the bow. And the thing is, the bow's going to be at the bottom. So let me hook up my glue gun. Hold on a sec. Alright, I got that going. So I'm going to take advantage of my tail piece here. So we're going to have the Lolli Pop stick going here. And the bow tie is going to be here. So we're going to make a letter M with this felt piece, so fold it in half, and then fold it in half again in the other direction. It's very tiny. Then we're going to take the blue piece here, and I'm just going to wrap this a couple of times around the bow, and then I have to tie a knot. But you want to make sure that this is as tight as it can get before you tie your knot. Okay, and I think I'm gonna double knot it. And then you can fan this out. All right. I'm just gonna wait for my glue gun to heat up. Now, they just tell you to insert this in there. I'm gonna do that, but I want it to stick for quite some time, so I'm going to use a glue gun. Let me see, there should be like, I'm gonna try to fish these in to some stitches already so that I can just glue this in place. So if you are allowed to use a glue gun or have supervision to use the glue gun, I would put some at the end here, and then after I insert this in, you can add extra glue in between the spaces and smush it down. And then we're going to come in and we can glue this bow in place, and you can cut all the excess pieces you want after that. I might wrap this a couple of times just because I have some slack. Yeah, I think that'll work out. Okay, so I'm going to be right back when my glue gun is ready. Alright, so I'm going to glue this end, put some in there, and then put some around the edge. And then I'm going to put this inside that cavity. Okay, the first one you just need to get in there and have that cool down. And then again, for these two spots, you can just put some glue on the exposed parts. And then I'm going to scrunch this down to make sure that is closed. And I'm going to wrap this around a couple of times. To get the bow tie there. I'm going to be gluing that. Okay, and I'm going to trim off the yarn. There's this little spot here that I think I should hit with glue as well. If you don't have a glue gun, you can sew it with the yarn in place. All right. So now that we have this, we're going to put on the face. So we're going to do the mouth first. And I am also going to hit this up with a little bit of glue, because I feel like the adhesive is not strong enough. Put that right in the middle. Okay. Then we're going to do one of the eyes. Then for this one, it's a little skinny and I don't feel comfortable holding it with the glue gun, so I'm going to use my tweezer. And I'm going to put glue. Like that. Okay, so that is that, you guys. We are pretty much done with this lollipop. Comment below, let me know what you think. Click that like button if you think it's cute, or click that like button if you are looking forward to making your own lollipop. But here is what it's supposed to look like. Not too bad. So I might have flipped the bow tie the wrong way, but whatever. Alright. So there you have it. So thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This is Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.